Good evening. Welcome to my channel. My name is David Okon. I will be speaking about the European Union, and I will do so in terms of the cost of living. I've been doing this program on the cost of living. I've been looking at the different dimensions involving the cost of living, involving many factors. When we talk about the European Union, we are trying to look at the political system of the globe, and this is actually central to what we understand in Britain, in America, in the Western world, including the Middle East, in countries like Israel, and also in the developed world. We have looked at different elements of the European Union. Uh, we uh, we look at the institution. We have been looking at the institutions last of all. Right now, we're going to look at the foreign relations within the European Union, and we'll also look at European external action services institutions such as that, and look at the personalities involved within the EU, uh, men and women. For example, Joseph Borrell, High Representative of Foreign Affairs and Security Policy. Now, normally, foreign affairs and security goes hand in hand. Normally, foreign trade is also included, but because uh, in um, in modern economy and under capitalism, we actually use militarism is actually a backup of actually is the driver of any civil power systems like the legal system. Without the forces, there are lack of enforcement. That's why our foreign policy is closely associated with their security policy. And the same with home affairs policies, domestic policies also associated with security. Foreign policy is normally associated with militarism. Domestic policy is associated with the domestic security system like the police, law enforcement agencies, and so on. And these institutions are similar, and I've argued in many areas that uh, these systems are actually responsible for the cost of living. I've said elsewhere that in the videos I've posted that uh, the cost of living is caused by income problem because people are on low income in Britain, in Europe, people are on low income in America, in the West, in the developed country, and in the developing country. So we have the cost of living as a crisis. Therefore, there is a social injustice involved in the cost of living. And my purpose to speak about the cost of living as a problem because it is actually a feature of modern capitalism, and it is actually a fundamental indicator of the crisis element of progress within capitalism, which is actually represented under the European Union as well. And that's why I'm talking about it, so that people to understand the problem to do with income, things to do with debt, issues like employment, low pay, poor working conditions, things to do with healthcare, things to do with transportation, schools, and if you look in Britain, the problem of children going without food in school in a developed country, Britain is the sixth richest country. Children go hungry without food in schools. And that is the problem of capitalism, which has always been a system of rule anywhere in the world. There have been variation of capitalism, like state or even welfare capitalism. I've said this elsewhere. Going forward, I will be repeating these central points, and my hope is that people learn from it. Because if you are facing a problem, you learn about it, and then you learn also how to solve such a problem. And it's so important that people take it seriously. And it is your life. If you value your life as a form of as part of cultural learning to value your life, then you value learning. You use your mind to learn. You read. You actually watch the videos on education, and you do many other things as usual. I mean, you play. You mix with people. You make friends. But like I said, learn to work hard. Especially if you are still young. If you are old, you should work also hard. Hard work actually leads to success. And also try to help other people who are in problem. Even if you don't have much money, do something to help people who are in need, children, um, people who have disability, people who are sick. These are actually cultural format to make us human, and to also influence systems such as capitalism to be more human, to be more humanized. So when we look at we look at the European Union, we will be actually concentrating on the structures, and it's something people need to know because it's the most important political system in the world, and it drives globalization. Globalization drives capitalism, and capitalism actually is responsible for the cost of living. So that's the connection. So when we look on a foreign policy cooperation between member states and um, a foreign policy cooperation between member states dates from the establishment of the community in 1957, when member states negotiated as a bloc in international trade negotiations under the EU's common commercial policy. So we're talking about EU common commercial policy. When we talk about commerce, when we talk about international trade, we are talking about selling and buying. We are talking about managing wealth, and we're talking about economic development as well as there's other mode of structures associated with wealth and power. Steps for more wide-ranging coordination in foreign relations began in 1970 with the establishment of the European Political Cooperation, which created an informal consultation process between member states with the aim of forming common foreign policies. So when we talk about common foreign policy, these foreign policies of member states and of the European Union are integrating to form a common foreign policy. What is actually diverse, nationalistic is becoming a common, is becoming European, is becoming global. And that's the mode. What we design to operate in the European Union is what we also do while trying to form the global economic system, economic and political system, because European Union is part of the global, it's a feature of globalization. In 1987, the European Political Cooperation was introduced on a formal basis by the Single European Act. So when we talk about the European political cooperation at a political region within the European hemisphere, European Union system, member states coming together to form political alliances, and in the process, these are actually set in laws. When we talk of acts, single European Act is a legislation. European legislation is actually the primary form of law, or European Union law, and these are actually enshrined into law. The process of political cooperation, European political cooperation, being actually enshrined in law, which actually cements the setting and also the power economy. The EPC, European Political Cooperation, was renamed as the Common Foreign and Security Policy, the Common Foreign Security Policy, CFSP, by the Maastricht Treaty. And it is the foreignness actually here signify involvement of member states. Member states, in theory, like we indicated in the other videos, member states within the European Union as members, member of the European Union, still have a semblance of sovereignty. So they are actually distinctive nation states with sovereign powers, although looking at it in detail, like we did in the previous video, we find that this sovereign power authority is actually an entity forming the nation state entity are being eroded by involvement within the European Union, within the, creating political and economic, social, foreign, security institutions which are actually set in law, in European Union law. And you find that, like we said before, foreign policies being actually integrated within security, and this is actually within the Maastricht Treaty, set within the Maastricht Treaty in the UK, in the EU is is a legal entity. Actually, is a legal force, which also look like constitutional force, but it also look like government policy force. So it's like you find the law, you find the constitution and policy within the treaty. Treaty is a very unique body, actually, formulation. It's a very unique formulation within the European Union, and is actually a treaty in its essence is one of a kind. So the aims of the CFSP, Common Foreign Security Policy, are to promote both the EU's, European Union's own interests and those of the international community as a whole, including the furtherance of international cooperation, respect for human rights, democracy, and the rule of law. Like in other foreign policy, it actually build relationship within member states, between member states and the EU, but also build a relationship between the European Union and countries outside the European Union. So thereby extending its foreign influences, and also foreign influence with a power like the European Union as at its essence the function of drawing foreign powers towards itself, thereby making foreign policy and defense and security policy of the European Union actually function to make the European Union more powerful. And when I talk about the rule of law, it's actually what it says, the rule of law. And I've explained this several times. What the law does, the law make you do something. The law make you do something or prevent you from doing something. That's what the law looks like. The European Union law is no different. So when the state, such as the state of Europe, the European Union, the European Union claims not to have a state, but if you look at the law, what are you doing with the rule of law if you are not a state? What are you doing with all the powers within the treaties if you are not a state? What are you doing with foreign and security policy if you're not a state? The European Union is a super state, like some people would propose, and they are very true. They are very right about their observation. Different people. I mean, the EU does not say it is a state. It does not also say it is not a state. So it's for you to really make up your mind about the European Union. So the rule makes you do something. The rule of law is the essence of democracy. And issues like respect for human rights, international cooperation. You scratch my back and I scratch yours. But if I have more power than you have, then you scratch my back more than I scratch yours. That's the relationship between European powers and the rest of the world. It's one of the European Union is the third largest market economy actually in the world after America, China, and then the European Union. So it has a lot of power, economic power, giving rise to political power, political and military power. So the unanimity and difficult issues treated under the common foreign and security policy sometimes lead to disagreements, such as those which occurred over the war in Iraq. The coordinator and representative of the CFSP within the EU is the High Representative of the Union for Foreign Affairs and Security Policy, who speaks on behalf of the European Union in foreign policy and defense matter, and has the task of articulating the positions expressed by the member states on this field of policy into a common alignment. The High Representative aids have the European External Action Service, EEAS, a unique EU department that has been officially implemented and operational since the 1st December 2010 on the occasion of the first anniversary of the entry into force of the Treaty of Lisbon. If you watch the other videos, I've actually given a preview of the various treaties of the European Union, and the EEAS will serve as a foreign ministry and diplomatic corps of the European Union. Besides the emerging international policy of the European Union, the international influence of the EU is also felt through enlargement. Enlargement is when new nation states join the European Union. That is the aim of attracting actually new membership. The perceived benefits of becoming a member of the European Union can act as an incentive for both political and economic reform in states wishing to fulfill the EU accession criteria, and are considered an important factor in contributing to the reform of the European formerly communist countries, like Eastern Europe, for example, East Germany, for example, and also Ukraine. Country like Ukraine is trying to enter, and probably it's part of the reason Russia is trying to fight Ukraine. Probably Ukraine is actually increasingly trying to enter into alliance with the West, which actually European Union is part of. So this influence on the internal affairs of other countries is generally referred to as soft power as opposed to military hard power, like I said previously in this video. So foreign policy is actually a form of soft power, and it is intended to influence foreign nations and also foreign policies. Promoting foreign policy is actually a supplement to hard power. Actually, the basis of foreign policy is the premise actually of foreign policy is that hard power should be used less and less. Hard power being the military power. So diplomacy is opposed to fighting, military fighting like you see in Ukraine, between Ukraine and Russia, by using soft power within the foreign policy and security infrastructure, will presumably, it's assumed, to bring peace other than war. And if you saw what we discussed initially, we said the logic, I mean the thinking behind European Union is to promote peace in Europe. So let us look at the humanitarian aid, and please subscribe to my channel if you haven't subscribed, and share with families and friends. And also watch the videos as much as possible. If you like it, leave a comment below, click like, click a notification bell, so that when I produce more video, you actually don't miss it. Further information, Directorate General for European Civil Protection and Humanitarian Aid Corporations. So you talking about civil protection and humanitarian aid operation. When you talk about humanitarian aid, say it's a disaster somewhere, and civil means people who are not, citizens. Basically, that's all. If you protect, civil protection can also mean using a civil instrument to protect interest, to protect wealth, to protect people, to protect whatever. So these are institutions of the state which government operate. So that is also evidence to illustrate the presence of governance within the European Union. So the European Commission's Humanitarian Aid and Civil Protection Department, or ECHO, provides humanitarian aid from the European Union to developing countries like Africa. So humanitarian aid is when there is poverty, when there is an emergency, when like the cost of living theoretically, the European Union should be helping Africa during the cost of living. So leave a comment below if you think the European Union should be supporting Africa with money, giving money to individual families in Africa because of the cost of living. Leave a comment below what you think our European Union should be doing for Africa, because it has an instrument, it has actually a system of providing aid, and civil protection to Africa specifically. In 2012, its budget amounted to EU 874 million. 51% of the budget went to Africa and 20% to Asia, Latin America, the Caribbean, and the Pacific, and 20% to the Middle East and Mediterranean. Sometimes, these aid are not clearly defined, they are not even ring-fenced, and if you follow my explanation of the capitalist system of managing wealth and also operating wealth, so to speak, you look at what we saw in 2012, the European Union budget of 874 million. That may not be a such a big money. It's not even a billion, not even 1 billion. It's just one. It's measured in millions. EU, 51% of the budget went to Africa, and 20% went to Asia, Latin America, and Caribbean, and the Caribbean and Pacific, and 20% to the Middle East and Mediterranean. This is not really a drop in the ocean in terms of spending for a continent like Africa, and without actually backing what I say. Normally, when states, including the European Union, give foreign aid, they do it to build infrastructures like roads, bridges, railways, sea lanes, airplanes, and things like that. Uh, they invest they invest in wealth, building capital, because it's about capitalism. Any rule, especially the marketized capitalist rule, it's about money, it's about wealth. So when they invest, we look at the wealthy people. We look at Jeff Bezos. We look at Elon Musk. We also look at Bernard Arnault from France, the richest man in the world. These three are actually number one, number two, and number three richest people in the world. Their behavior in giving charitable wealth and money, they give money to build wealth. They don't give money to people. They give money for building things other than people. They like things. Capitalism like things more than people, in my opinion, because they invest more money on things other than on people. Things are actually wealth, capital. So capitalism is the accumulation of wealth. They like accumulating wealth. That's their behavior. That's what they do. They just pile more and more and more money. So when you hear the European Union giving foreign aid, or even the developed world giving foreign aid to Africa, they are actually building wealth. They are not actually spending this money on human beings. Human beings will actually continue to live in poverty. And what humans, actually people, benefit from is the environment of wealth, of affluence. But these wealth are actually owned by the few and not the many. The rich people of the world, it's just this money are actually invested to generate more wealth and power to the ruling class. The ruling class are about 10% in the world. These are the people who control wealth wherever they go. So when you hear about foreign aid, you talk about actually capital investment. And normally the result in Africa, strategy normally to take land away from people and give it to the state, and the state gives it to multi-millionaires and multi-billionaires, normally from the rich countries. So that is the problem. That's why it doesn't matter how much foreign powers give to Africa and to other poor countries. There is always more and more poverty. The same with the Western world. The more they invest in their own part of the world, the developed world, the West especially, and also now the Eastern Bloc, like China, Russia, India, Middle East, the more the state, invest in capitalism, in building wealth, in creating wealth, the more the poor are actually the majority of the population are. And because these wealth are actually created, when you talk about economic development, the wealth created is actually given to the few and not the many. The many are actually prevented from accessing wealth. I demonstrated this when speaking about capitalism. That capitalism is a system of rule. And it's almost presented as a system of the economy. Yes, it is, but this system of economy used to amass, to create wealth, and wealth actually give power to the super rich. And the story locally, nationally, and globally. And like I said, the European Union is a driver of globalization. If you look at the other videos, so this is some of the things I will be talking about. I will be trying to explain this thing and put them in certain context. I'll leave a comment below what you think. And so, humanitarian aid is financed directly by the budget, 70% as part of the financial instruments for external action. And when you talk about financial instrument, you say humanitarian aid is financed directly by the budget, 7% as part of the financial instruments for external action, and also by the European Development Fund, 30%. External action is in investing money in infrastructure and including financial infrastructure. Actually, the purpose of financial budgetary implementation in terms of humanitarian aid, actually, we talk about humanitarian aid, but actually the aid given to wherever it is given is used to create infrastructure, to create, to build capital, to promote capitalism, like I tried to explain. And the EU's external action financing is divided into geographic instruments and thematic instruments. Geography is about area, and theme is actually about topics or objectives. The geographical instruments provide aid through the development cooperation instruments. Talk about development. Cooperation is people agree to implement these developmental objectives, and instruments are actually tools for achieving this. So DCI, to the tune of 16.9 billion euro, is between 2007 and 2013, which must be spent 95% of its budget on official development assistance. Official is government. So if government drives development, is focusing this on infrastructure, civil development, civil system for business, for doing business. That's what government based development. When any aid, any foreign aid is actually channeled through government, is for capital development, for infrastructure, and for capital. That's to promote capitalism, and that's what it is. So 95%, all of it, actually all of the money, is to promote capitalism through creating wealth for the few and not for the many, for multimillionaires and multi-billionaires in, say, for example, in Africa or elsewhere. And with which must be spent. You see, it must be spent. It's a compulsion. It's compulsory. It has to be done, and there's a force involved in this kind of spending mechanism. So 95% of its budget on official development assistance, ODA, order, and from the European Neighborhood and Partnership Instrument, NP, which contains some relevant programs. Relevant programs like healthcare, maybe emergency, things which are non-commercial, but also things which are commercial, because every element of the economy is being commercialized. These are being commercialized, including the social sector, defense, security. So the European Development Fund, EDF, gives 22.7 billion for the period. 2008 and 2013, and 30.5 billion for the period 2014 and 2020, which is made up of voluntary contributions by member states, but there is a pressure to merge the EDVF into the budget financial instruments to encourage increased contributions to match the 0.7% target and allow the European Parliament greater oversight. So the funding mechanism is being reformed to give more power to the European Union in the way it is actually managed. And so ultimately, when you talk about merger, you are talking about something called corporatization. You mean building, piling more and more power into one area, centralizing power, so that it can be more impactful, more effective, and also speed it up. So it's the speeding up of actually foreign aid mechanisms to provide capital to produce wealth to develop capitalism in wherever these foreign aids are given. In 2016, the average among European Union countries was 0.4%, and 5 had met or exceeded the 0.7% target: Denmark, Germany, Luxembourg, Sweden, and the United Kingdom. These are some of the statistics of their giving, of their foreign aid. If considered collectively, European Union members are European member states are the largest contributor of foreign aid in the world. So that speaks for itself. So the European Union, like I said, is the driver of globalization, and it does that. Part of the method it uses, actually, economic approach, and all this foreign aid, like I said, is actually given to create wealth around the world, to expand capitalism, and this wealth created are actually for the few and not for the many, because it is capitalistic, it is marketized, it is actually involved privatization in Africa. It involved government taking land from poor and giving it to the rich via the state. So let us look at the international cooperation and development partnerships main article. Let's look at something called Directorate General for International Partnerships, ACP, EU Development Cooperation, European Solidarity Corps, European Union Global Strategy, European Neighborhood Policy, and Global Europe. Let's talk about neighborhood, talk about solidarity corps, talk about European Union Global Strategy. Strategy is plan. It's a plan and the institution to implement this plan, like defense, like trade, diplomacy. Talk about global strategy, in the global outlook, the model of system and state structure in Europe to be promoted globally. So you talk about Directorate General, international partnership in friendship. People work together. So it's about globalization, essentially through institutional building. It's about power, using power and force coming from soft power and hard power, like military force, and also soft power like economic and foreign systems. So you have Eastern Partnership Summit of 2017 Brussels. The European Union uses foreign relations instruments like the European Neighborhood Policy, which seek to tie those countries to the east and south of the European territory of the European Union to the Union of the European of the EU of the European Union to the Union. So it's actually about expansion. It's about bringing in the East and the South, South including Africa, the past also the Middle East. That's what the South means. The South and the North means the poorer parts of the world. The South, the richer part of the world is in the North, like Europe, America. These are called the North, the northern hemispheric power. And the East is actually places like Russia, Ukraine, East Europe, Eastern Germany. So these are actually strategies to bring in or connect, actually extend. Bringing in simply means opening gateways to for the European Union to connect to these regions, so that if you see the European will be at the top. These other regions joining the European Union from the south and the east, and also in the west, actually, will be tributaries. They will be actually satellites. They will be like supply chains to the European Union economic, social, political power system. So that's how it looks like. These countries, primarily developing countries, include some who seek to one day become either a member state of the European Union or more closely integrated with the European Union. So the richer you are, the more capitalistic you become, the more restructured you are, the more likely you will either join the European Union to become member state or become actually a uh, a close friend. A close friend simply means you are outside, but you are a servant who is actually you reap from the benefit of the European Union if you're a friend, but you're always a servant. You're a servant of the big power of the European Union, but you serve from outside because you're less important. So if you are the more important, that means you have more money. The more important you become, the more likely you are going to be a servant on the inside. Every nation state is a servant of the European Union. European Union is the master of the world of nation states. So whoever joins the EU, you are going to be a second-class citizen. You're going to be a second-class nation. Europe will rule over you. And you comment below if you think that is good and or bad. I've discussed the concept of rule under capitalism, and that's actually being replicated within the European Union and globally. The EU offers financial assistance to countries within the European neighborhood so long as they meet the strict conditions of government reform, economic reform, and other issues surrounding positive transformation. A political reform is actually democracy. You copy what is happening in the Western world in their language and interpretation of democracy, which means you hold regular election, you practice party politics. But what matters in terms of democracy is actually the economic and the strict condition of government reform, economic reform. Economic reform means capitalism, in promoting capitalism and other issues surrounding positive transformation. Positive transformation, you have to have a good attitude to change, to development, and you have to be a good friend who listen to what they are told. You have to really, you have to sell your country. You have to give power away to Europe. You allow them to control your country. That is positive transformation. I will talk about building infrastructure, military and civil infrastructure, and all these are actually channels of power. So those are positive transformation. And if you're a country around the world, you have to prepare to start listening to what the European Union tells you. Otherwise, you are going to be in serious trouble. This process is normally underpinned by an action plan is agreed by both Brussels and the target countries. The target countries are countries we are targeted for transformation, for accession, joining the European Union. I can actually say this accession to the European Union means you willingly surrender to the big power. Other than being captured, you surrender to the European Union. I mean, it's better to come peacefully other than being forced into it. But you see, the European Union is so sophisticated that even if even if there are countries who want to be annexed by the European Union, they don't want them. You have to really, they have the luxury to choose and pick who they want to capture. This is a modern form of imperialism, and it is really cool. Leave a comment below and let me know what you're thinking. A modern approach is really so stylistic of imperialism, of conquest. The European Union is a conqueror. It's a conqueror, it's a conquering power. It's actually, it devours countries. But he chooses and picks which one. I mean, he looks at the fat one and rejects the lean one. He wants fat. He wants really, he chooses and picks who he wants to conquer. And people are desperate. They are begging the European Union, conquer us, conquer us, conquer us. Let us be your servant. And they don't want, if they don't want you, they are not going to have you. Even if you are desperate, make me your slave. Make me your slave. Member states are begging European Union to make them their slave. European Union doesn't want them. They only pick and choose who they want. Life couldn't be any more sophisticated in the EU. And this is globalization. This is actually the European Union actually sucking in all the states, all the countries of the world to make it one world, one country. The European Union is going to be the head of state. It's going to be the capital city of the global power, the global economic power. Leave a comment below if you think globalization is a good thing or if you think it is not. Feel free to leave a comment below. This process is normally underpinned by an action plan is agreed by both Brussels and the target country. If you're targeted, you are so lucky because Britain, the European Union want you to join the European Union, and you will be more than happy to be a part of the European Union empire. You see, you will cease to be a country, and you'll be very happy, and being under the imperial power of the European Union. So the Union for the Mediterranean meeting in Barcelona. This is one of the events. There's also the worldwide European Union global strategy. So global strategy is a plan to reach out to member states and non-member states to look at the globe. Like I said, which country should be colonized, which one should be colonized, because colonialism under the European Union is going to be either the European Union bring you to the upper class or it leaves you to the lower class of a colony. So when you join the inner ring, member state is the inner ring of this colonial system. If the European Union colonizes you and bring you inside the the inner sanctum of capitalism, then you enjoy the cream of the crop. You rub shoulder with the king of Europe, which is actually the president of the European Union, the commissioner, and all the other uh, uh, reigning powers of the European Union. And you rub shoulder with the royalties of the union, and then you're happy you're a member state. And if you're not a member state, the Europe rule over you from a distance. You mean you're not within the inner circle of the colonized states. You stay outside the outer ring. You're excluded from where all the cream, all the fat, all the good life. You're just excluded from the good life. That's typically capitalistic and also colonial. And this is called global strategy. You see who is ready and who is not ready. You actually manage them from outside the gates, the golden gates, and access to the glory and power of the European Union on the inside. And if you are outside, behave well, and then power will, whatever they have will trickle down to you from outside the European Union. And international recognition of sustainable development is a key element. It's growing steadily. Sustainability is that development, you establish development and maintain it and keep it and maintain that development. That's what sustainability is. So it normally in practice relate to environmental protection, using technology and modern method of development using technology, and also streamlining development to kind of like, normally in practice you focus on a certain area, focus just on a certain area of development. Your priority is actually to develop goods and services for the super rich, and spend more money to develop goods and services to be sold to 10% of the population. But it also means you should not invest in the rest of the economy. You just have to leave the world to follow. You have, promote nature, promote the environment by not developing for the rest of the population. Only develop enough, put enough investment, develop enough resources for the few and not for the many. So, if needed, the poor, eventually the poor should be actually be kept in a concentration camp, because when technology happens and the ruling class still want to control power, what they're going to do, they are going to use technology to produce goods and services at no extra cost. So if it was not for the desire to rule and the mere thirst for power, everyone should be alright economically. But like I said in the other videos, society need cultural education. We are culturally uneducated. It doesn't matter how rich we are still going to want to rule. We are still going to want to have power. Power is to rule for glory. Rule is more for glory. But it's also to preserve, to control wealth, so that, for security reasons, so that you protect yourself. So that people who are not rulers should not really, because people are always fighting. You see, that's a problem. Although the European Union is trying to bring peace, they have to teach the world. The EU, if you want peace, they have to teach people to live peacefully, to have respect for themselves. If you're rich, you have to respect yourself, respect other people, even if they are not rich. I don't see they don't talk about culture at all. European Union, like in other capitalistic program, they don't talk about money. They talk about people. They talk about people as enemies. And if they are friends, they are united to fight against their enemies. So that is, they don't talk about respect at all. Because respect should involve peace. If you respect yourself, you respect other people, you don't fight. So we are building power in Europe without actually building the culture, which means we are actually repeating capitalism. We are expanding it. We're making it bigger. We are acquiring more power and wealth without actually developing the human culture. Humans will, there are individuals within the European Union and the global system. They will have so much power that only one person can terrorize the billions of population, because they will be controlling technology, science. They do what they are going to be gods of the world. And if they don't have respect for themselves or for others, you will see the chaos. And this is what we are building. We are building wealth and power. That's what the European Union is trying to do. Its role was recognized in 3 major UN summits on sustainable development. The 1992 UN Conference on Environment and Development, UNCED, in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, the 2002 World Summit in Sustainable Development, WSSD, in Johannesburg, in South Africa, and the 2012 UN Conference on Sustainable Development, UNCSD, in Rio de Janeiro. So I said sustainable development is about environment policy and principle, and the whole conduct is actually to preserve the earth for the few and not for the many. The many are seen as pollution. The majority of the people who are actually excluded from rule are seen as part of the pollution. They should be cleansed. They should be actually removed from the surface of the earth. Either they are put underground into a prison, they're just fed. So to clear the environment, so turn the environment into a park, into golf courses, into the reason people want park, to keep animals into it for entertainment. So people should be removed. Sustainable development means people should be removed from the surface of the earth and kept somewhere else. And the earth should be left for the few and not the many. Maybe 10%. The rest should be hidden. They should be hidden somewhere. That's what sustainable development means. And it means environmental protection. Protection from human beings. Human beings are... They destroy the environment. They destroy trees. They destroy animals. They pollute water. Because there are many. It's common sense. There are so many and poor. They always want to consume. They are going to finish the earth's resources. So they should be excluded. They should be excluded in some way. Maybe they be put in some. Maybe they should be taken to another space. If the ruling class can find their way, if they can get some technology and maybe create another space, they're going to export people there by force from the earth, so that the earth is like maybe a paradise or a park for animals. People come here to entertain, have parties, just a few, 10%, 5% of the population living in the world, controlling wildlife. That is sustainable development, environmental protection. It means the world for the few and not for the many. So the SDH, the SDH recognize all countries must stimulate action in the following key areas: people and planet. Talk about people, planet, prosperity. A planet is Earth. People are humans. Prosperity is wealth creation, development. Peace is when people don't fight, and partnership when people cooperate. Cooperation simply means you cooperating with the power, with the state. That's called partnership. You partner with the state, but the state actually tells you what to do. The state of Europe and the people with power tells you what to do. Now partnership, because they are developing, the language will change. When they achieve absolute power, it's going to be cooperation. Cooperation is already now used in many ways. You are told something, you have to follow it, or else you get into trouble. You are either going to be excluded from the European Union, you are going to be thrown away from the inner circle to the outer circle, which increasingly will turn into some form of a prison. And also, the prison will eventually become a place of emptiness. People being put into prison will have to be removed, either exported into the outer space, or they have to be buried. You have to really create an underground space to put them there, and only maybe you only feed them and just keep them out of the world. They shouldn't be seen, because you want empty space to to enjoy the few and not the many. So this is the kind of in order to tackle the global challenges that are crucial for the survival of humanity. So global challenges are to do with war, things like warfare. You want to prevent war. You see, you want to actually, global challenges, you need to control things to do with depletion of natural resources. And also, survival of humanity means survival of the few and not the many. That means the few should be kind of like excluded, and the world should be left for humanity. For humanity means the few, the super rich, the multi-millionaires and the multi-billionaires. The 10%, the 5% of the population are the ones referred to as the humanity, and the few are not the many. The many are actually part of the challenges, global challenges. They need to be dealt with. So the European Union Development Action is based on the European Consensus on Development. So development is actually capitalism, expanding capitalism, and the money and the wealth transferred to the ends of the few and not into the hands of the many. And so EU development action is based on the European Consensus on Development. So the ruling class congregate to agree on a strategy to manage development, which actually channel system of capitalism to generate wealth, more wealth and power into the hand of the few, and see how to deal with the challenges of controlling the majority of the population, to exclude them from the world, and probably create another world for them. And I think this is possible. Probably it's feasible. Probably it's a good thing as well. Leave a comment below and let me know. Which was endorsed on the 20th December 2005 by EU member states, the Council, the European Parliament, and the Commission. So this is actually the power system of Europe. EU member states, the Council, the European Parliament, and the Commission. It is co-applied from the principle of capability approach and rights-based approach to development. Capability means independence. You are able to do something. You are actually building infrastructure. You're building capacity by intensifying wealth into the hands of the rulers, and also rights-based approach to development, which means that those who are actually given the right to access wealth, the citizens of the world, the 10%, the 5% of the world, these are actually citizens. These are people who are actually have right to control, to manage development, and also to own the product of development. So funding is provided by the instrument for pre-accession assistance and the global European programs. So you funding, you pre-accession, actual preparation, prepare like buying a new clothes for you when you are going to meet a bride or a bridegroom or the king. You are not going to be dressed like some kind of like a street gang before you enter the community of the elites in the European Union. So pre-accession preparation, you should be prepared. I mean, you should be really clean up. We don't want that in European Union cycle. We don't want that. So what we're going to do, we are going to provide funding. Provide funding by there is an instrument known as the pre-accession assistance. Instrument for pre-accession assistance. So tools put together to actually clean nations up. These tools are actually techniques of capitalism, how to create wealth, how to control wealth, how to administer power, how to eliminate threats, how to clean up challenges, how to remove challenges to capitalism. In other words, how to deal with the poor and the many, and also how to keep the family of the select few of the elites of the world, how to behave yourself as part of the elite of the elite society. The European Union do not want you to be uncivil. You have to have class. You have to have class. You have to really portray yourself as a true ruler, son of a ruler, daughter of a ruler. And you are different. You are born to rule. You are actually an upper class. You don't mix and mingle with the rest of the world. So you need to really prepare to accede into the throne of the European Union and the global European programs. Global European program we have talked about, and there are many. They have to do with money, wealth, and power. These are programs designed to build wealth, to explore, to conquer, and to control, to dominate, and to destroy things you don't need. People you don't need, you exclude them, and you kind of strengthen your stance and become the best that the world of rule and capitalism can build. And the partnership and cooperation agreements are bilateral agreements with non-member nations. So bilateral, you give and take. It's bilateral because you give and take. You are equal, but you are not equal because the European Union is more powerful than you. Next time, thank you for watching this video. Next time we meet, we're going to talk about defense and going to look at common security and defense policy. We're also going to look at the factors such as Frontex, European Defense Agency, European Union Institute for Security Studies, European Union Satellite Centers, those resources to look at the coat of arms of the military staff of Europe, look at different functions, European membership of the European Union and NATO, look at different illustration members, only EU members, only NATO members, only EU and NATO members only. These are actually the outlook of militarism and military infrastructure in Europe, which is what we're going to look at. We're going to look at defense. Defense is about militarism, but it's also other soft power economy like wealth, like foreign policy, economic policy, and all the others we have discussed, which we will continue to discuss. Um, um, Thank you for watching my videos. Subscribe to my channel. Then click the notification bell. If you like the video, click like and share with family and friends. Leave a comment below, and thank you for watching. See you soon. Thank you. Bye bye.